Hello, good morning. It is my pleasure to share this conversation with Isabela de Alcázar and Conchita Galdón today. We're going to be talking about the topic of sustainability and the law, sustainability and regulation. Isabela, I would like to start by asking you in this very broad area, the very broad topic of sustainability, what is your definition of sustainability?
Well, sustainability refers to being able to maintaining over time not only living standards but also production and consumption patterns. But at the same time we have to be careful because we have to think of future generations because we need them to be able also to be living adequately. Okay, so there are different ways to understand sustainability. We can think of environmental sustainability, that's one of them, taking care of the planet, the biodiversity, but there are also social sustainability is an essential part of sustainability. How are the living standards of the people? Are their societies cohesive and taken care of? There's also, it's very important to think of governance and how this rules that both the planet and the people are taken care of. And we could go on forever, like sustainability. Now we hear in the news on the pensions, are pensions sustainable? So it's very broad.
Why do you think that precisely now is the time to talk about sustainability, to educate, to train professionals and the citizens in the topic of sustainability?
Well, I think if you read the news and the challenges that are raised and the problems that our societies are facing, we see that most of the challenges that we are facing nowadays on a local level, but also globally, because we share a common planet, give us or are telling us that both our societies and our natural habitats cannot take any more pressure on them. So I think it's the right moment to rethink how we're doing things, to transform, and this transformation will require continuous education also, which is very important.
Conchita, who do you think are the citizens or the professionals who should be thinking and trying to better understand and being trained in sustainability? Which profile of professionals are we talking about? Which sector of the economy do you think should be taking a broader and deeper look at sustainability?
At this time, it'd be more difficult to think of someone who should not be thinking about sustainability than thinking of someone who should. In any profession, in any functional area, just like you can't work today if you can't open a computer and type, you can't be a good professional if you're illiterate with respect to sustainability. Not everybody needs to be an expert in sustainability, just like not everyone needs to be a systems architect and be able to program software, but just like everybody needs to be able, to write down something in a computer, send an email, even basic stuff, in the same way, you need to know enough about sustainability. You can't be a good lawyer if you're illiterate with respect to sustainability. You can't be a good professional in the finance industry if you're illiterate, if you have this huge blind spot. You can't work in strategy. You can't understand the tensions in the retail industry. You can't understand what's going on in the financial industry, as I was saying, but also in freight management, for example, in logistics, in any kind of industry in education in our sector. There is no course that you can teach in which you might not get a question related to governance matters, environmental matters, social matters. So if you are a professional today and you don't know enough about sustainability, you should get your act together quickly, because you need to learn enough if you're going to be the best professional you can possibly be.
So it really is across all sectors and probably as we have seen how society has evolved through globalization and digitalization, it is now about sustainability.
100%. Every sector, every functional area.
And economic development also.
Absolutely, absolutely. Economic development, and you need to understand this because if you're in a company and you wish to grow your company, and part of the value that you create for society is employment generation, jobs, things like that, you must understand the embeddedness of your company within the socio-economic context and the natural context in which your service, your product is being produced and sold.
Isabella, regarding regulation, what role does it play, sustainability and corporate governance?
So I think it goes hand in hand. Let's say if we analyze environmental challenges that we're facing right now, we're talking about the planet that is warming, but it's also that we are polluting the waters, the seas, food security, and then we analyze maybe those are some of the problems that we are facing. Now we analyze social problems like overpopulation, like there are many people that live in energy poverty, for example. So if you start thinking how these challenges relate to one another, you will see that there are many interconnections. And this is key because, for example, climate change will affect the emissions of those that will need energy in the future, and this will increase emissions. Okay, so everything is very interconnected, and we are talking about globally. So therefore, if we let things to self-regulate, this will take a lot of time, and we don't have enough time. That's why we need rules in place so that we can guide the adequate behaviors and set the framework so that everyone knows how to operate. That's key.
Conchita, I'd like to throw to you one very specific question. What is, in your opinion, the difference between compliance and sustainability?
Well, if you're thinking that compliance and sustainability are the same thing, you're at a very, very, very basic level. And I go back to my previous answer, you should get yourself some training on what sustainability means, because you do have this huge blind spot. Compliance refers to the bare minimum of meeting the regulation and the standards, because it's not just the law, right? Sophisticated compliance is not just about abiding by the law, but it's also about abiding by what's acceptable in the societies in which you operate. That's the minimum, right? That's the bare minimum. You cannot operate material, you can't operate if you are not compliant with existing regulation and acceptable behaviors. Sustainability takes governance one step further to a more creative and strategic space beyond basic compliance. So compliance is critical, it's very important, and you must comply in order to operate. There's better ways, more sophisticated ways of doing compliance than others, right? So a good lawyer that takes care of compliance will take you to more interesting spaces than those that just operate at the very, very basic level of compliance. But sustainability is strategy.
It goes beyond.
It goes beyond, it must go beyond. It has to do with innovating, with being strategic, with finding your competitive advantage, a new way to compete in a new space. So it includes compliance, but it builds on compliance, on good compliance, but it goes beyond compliance.
And I would say also that as not all countries have the same regulation, it's also a way so that all companies or public institutions also can increase their level and be more homogeneous, no? in what they do.
Yes.
Conchita, how do you think that we could promote a culture of sustainability? So as you were saying, much beyond compliance, and I mean a culture of sustainability in citizens, in society, and in particular in companies.
We need to undergo a culture change. And culture change management and change management in general, right? It's something that we've studied in business schools and law schools and universities for ages. It's a complex topic. And there's many different things that need to happen for culture change to occur. The good thing is that growing numbers of the people that conform societies and companies do genuinely care for sustainability. So you need to articulate this culture change, but on top of like a willing group of people, right? A willing population, people who really want to see this happen. However, you need to accompany them in the process, and accompanying them in the process takes training, right? It takes them to understand a technically complex issue, which is sustainability, which is going to be technically complex in different ways, depending on the sector, the functional area, and so on. Sustainability is not technically complex in the same way for a lawyer as it is for an architect, right? Or for a manager, for example, or if you're in one department or another. So training is critical, but not just training, but I think also operations. How do you streamline your operations so that people don't have a harder day at work because you're trying to be sustainable, rather than have a similar day at work or even a better day at work because you're being sustainable. So how do you streamline your operations? How do you understand where the bottlenecks are? How do you understand any resistances that are happening? Why are they happening? And usually they happen for legitimate reasons. And if you can work with those people, then you can unblock those legitimate reasons while those blocks are happening. I think that you can't really guilt people into changing. You need to inspire people into changing and then make it easy for them to change.
Thank you, Isabella and Conchita, for this very enriching and inspiring conversation on sustainability and the law.
Thank you.